Hello and welcome back to Whose Power Rankings Is It Anyway? Yes, where it's all made up and the power rankings don't matter. We're just winging it. Honestly, we're just making it up as we go along for our 2021. Obviously, there's some great teams and we're breaking them down in our power rankings / tier list / fusion of whatever the hell this is. I know someone called me out in the comments, but we're making it work. Okay, we're in too deep to sort of fix that. So we're going to keep going and we're going to start. Have a look at where we are so far. The C tier, we got the Vancouver Titans, the Paris Eternal, and the London Spitfire, and the failed management tier of the Los Angeles Valiant. So, who's going into the B tier this year? And I think it's going to be a team that's been making a lot of upgrades in the offseason, and it's going to be the Boston Uprising. This is a team that obviously very successful in season 1, but then in seasons 2 and 3 really fell off. Just with the acquisition of new talent, I think they really struggled to find any high quality players. They were just really promoting from their academy team and just kept falling shorter and shorter and shorter. They did have a successful end to the 2020 season, got a couple of wins. It was all starting to come together, with the addition of Punk. But in this offseason, they've taken it to the next level. They've made a lot of phenomenal additions, and we're going to look at them right now. So we have the old guard that already existed on this team, the Color Hex, the Fusions, and we actually have Myunbong from last season as well. So these are all players that have been with them for long standing. But then we have so many additions coming from the Korean region, but also the addition of Soon, which is a really interesting one because I think if you told a lot of people going into 2021 that Soon would be playing for Boston, a lot of people would be very surprised. But it really works on this roster. So let's break down who we got here. So we have Color Hex on the DPS, someone who I don't think has had a ton of success throughout his career in the league since 2019, but has sort of been crushed under the weight of playing GOATs and then playing with an unsuccessful team. This is really his breakout season, in my opinion. He's been grinding like crazy in ranked. He's really trying to work, and I'm really excited to see what he's going to be able to do in this roster now that he has like a pretty solid roster around him. With that said, there's also 3 other DPS players in this team. So we have IM37, who will be the hit scan player, who historically played for the Toronto Defiant, if I'm remembering that correctly. He was okay, known for his like robotic aim. Very aim, not a whole lot of game sense. That's not how it goes, but I didn't want to say he doesn't have a brain, but did fall out of the league, but coming back for Boston. Excited to see what he's going to be able to do. Soon, obviously, we know is a phenomenal player, especially on that Tracer. We'll definitely feel that role on this team and excited to see him do it. And then we have Valentine coming in as well. So Valentine and Faith are coming in as a duo from from a Korean Contenders team with Laurie. So they're all coming from WGX Phoenix, and they are a phenomenal duo that came. I went back and watched some of these VODs. Valentine impressed me a lot. Phenomenal flex DPS player, played pretty much everything. His echo's really good. Excited to see how he's going to pick it up, but also how they're going to integrate both Valentine and Color Hex into this lineup, because there is some crossover there. Does Color Hex become more of a hit scan player because he does have that in his repertoire? Are they going to trade time based on their better heroes between him and Valentine? We don't really know. I think there is a world in which we just don't see a whole lot of Color Hex, and Valentine will play full time. As I said, Laurie is now the head coach, coming from WGX Phoenix, has a lot of experience with him and Faith. So we'll see the direction this team goes, because we now have a very Korean roster, and we actually saw them play very recently in the Overwatch Steel Series Invitational. And for the most part, there was a little bit of Color Hex, but for the most part, they played their 5 Korean players and then mixed in a little bit of Soon, a little bit of Color Hex, but Punk is obviously the only off-tank that exists in this team. So the direction of the team is a little unclear as of right now with the roster, but individually, I think they have a great, talented roster, and I think this is going to be the best iteration that we've seen of the Boston Uprising since their inaugural season in 2018 when they had Krusty as the head coach. So a lot of these players can be raised up. I'm actually really excited to see how far this team can go. I don't think they're going to be claiming for the top. They're not going to be one of the best teams in the league, but they definitely deserve to be here in this B tier right now. So let's go through the rest of the roster real quick, because it is a lot of familiar names. So we have Fusions and Punk, who have been in this team for for a while now. Sort of the ideology of the team, but they weren't replaced coming into this season. And then we have Stand One as a main tank who played for the Shanghai Dragons, but didn't really get much playtime under Fearless. So excited to see him be as the primary main tank coming into this team. And then obviously for supports we have Faith and Myunbong, which slaps. That is a really good support and backline. Myeonbong, very impressive. The only shining light to come out of Boston. We all knew he was going to be good, and we thought he was in Boston jail, but now he's really elevating this team, and he has a great support partner in Faith. Watched him play. His brig is great. Honestly, one of the better brigs that I've watched play recently. Just always in right positioning, always supporting his flex support, but on top of that has that Lucio to go with it. So I'm really excited to see how this whole team is going to gel together and really sort of prove that they aren't this sort of bottom tier team that we've been expecting from Boston over the last few seasons. We will go over the coaches as well. So we have Mineral, no longer the coach and a manager, which I think is a good change. We have Laurie coming in as the head coach, as I said, who was very successful in WGX Phoenix. And then Azkoft and Baroy. I don't know these two coaches that well. Obviously, they've been around. Azkoft has been around for a while, but I don't know anything about Baroy. So we'll see. See if this coaching staff has what it takes. It is a weird mix of players in terms of Europeans, Australians, Kiwis, Koreans across the board, and just Europeans in general. So I'm excited to see. Excited to see what they can pull out as like a very heavy mixed roster. So only time will tell. All right. So then we move on. We got Boston in the B tier as the first team. The next team that I'm going to be putting in here is the Houston Outlaws. So Houston, it's interesting because Houston has made a lot of great acquisitions. I think they're doing a phenomenal job with the roster that they put together. The question becomes, how much better are they going to get? Because they still have a lot of the old pieces. The old guard with like Dante, and they're sort of building around that. But for the most part, this isn't the Houston Outlaws, which is sort of holding on to the marketability of their team anymore. They are really trying to be competitive. I would usually have said this is Houston Outlaws is going to be way better, but the entire league has improved so much that it's kind of hard to put Houston Outlaws above this. But if you are an Outlaws fan, I know you guys have been let down so many times in the past, but this is the season that you have to be excited about this team. The sky is the limit. They have so much talent and so much across the board, and it's actually been a proper rebuild, in my opinion, for this Houston Outlaws. You will not come last again this season. I will 100% guarantee you that. I would be shocked if this team came last. They have a great new coaching staff. They have great new players, and let's have a look at that. So, off the bat, we need to talk about the DPS because there's a lot of them. There is one of the questionable things that I have about this roster. They have 5 DPS players, and I don't know how they integrate all of them. Obviously, Dante is phenomenal, one of the best Western DPS players that we have within the league. Hydration is making his return back to DPS after being sort of in main tank jail. The failed experiment honestly was okay, but it's still, Hydration should be on DPS to play that flex DPS. Hydration is known for his sort of his unique niche characters like your Pharahs, maybe your Echoes, your Hanzos, and that kind of stuff. And then we have Happy coming out from the Guangzhou Charge as the hit scan, which is an exciting pickup. A phenomenal hit scan player to have on their team that really complements a lot of what everything else is happening, because the other two is KSF and Jake. And if you are like me, the question becomes, there is a lot of hero overlap between Hydration, KSF, and Jake. All of them are flex DPS players. That's sort of their bread and butter. Jake has obviously changed a lot as a player since he didn't play in 2020 season, but put a ton of work individually mechanically. But we also don't know in what capacity Jake is going to play. He joins as a player coach role, and I don't know what that means. Is he going to be having more impact as a player, or is he going to be more leaning towards the coaching side and not really have that expectation to play? Because I would actually say KSF and Jake have a very similar hero pool. And then Hydration is a little bit more niche. Who's going to be playing in that role is going to be very interesting. It's probably going to be dependent on what meta heroes become meta. But you can't lie, this has a wealth of depth within this lineup in their DPS lineup, which is cool. Is it going to pay off for them? We're not 100% sure. The weakness that I'm highlighting, though, is they have no tank and no support subs. What you see is what you get, which isn't the worst thing in the world. We see that on a lot of other teams as well. But we have Piggy and Django, who is a tank duo, 100% from Talon Esports. I honestly haven't watched a lot of these guys. I don't think I've seen these guys play at all. I haven't watched Talon Esports play, at least not actively, or where I could remember Piggy and Django. So I do want to go back and watch some of them before we see them in the Overwatch League. but there is a lot of hype coming around. Apparently a phenomenal tank duo coming in, and they hopefully can be integrated effectively into the Outlaws team, which is a very heavy mixed roster now. Three Korean players with 5 Western players. So interesting, excited, but that's definitely an upgrade from what we saw from them last season and what we've seen from the Houston Outlaws. I think, unfortunately, main tank was where they really struggled last season, with Muma sort of falling off the face of the earth in the middle of the season and Hydration stepping up. Having a proper tank come in and take up that role is going to be really nice, and having an off tank, not like Meko kind of felt a little lost in the grand scheme of things. Having a deep tank duo that can come in and work together with pre-existing synergy is going to mean a lot for this team. So I'm excited to see how they're going to make their presence known. Then for the support lineup, Juby is down here, in case you can't see him. Juby is underage right now, but he's a main support who's been playing in NA contenders since the beginning, but has always been underage. Finally gets to make his debut. Very talented main support. Really excited to see what he can do in the league, because, you know, it's one of those players who's just never really been there because he hasn't been of age, but probably has always had the talent to play in the league. And then Krimzo, who I think a lot of people would agree was a shining light of Dallas Fuel last season. In my opinion, one of the better flex supports that exists within the league as a Western player. And he really, even on the dumpster fire that was the Dallas Fuel, with like everything that happened, he was pretty consistent, and I was really impressed with him. He had some phenomenal Ana games, which I think it would be his signature hero. So I'm excited to see if we're going to see more of that from him, or, you know, get to see what else is in his repertoire. So that's a great lineup, and I don't think anyone can doubt that individually and mechanically, that is a good lineup. So it comes down to, are they going to be able to put it together? And I think when you talk about the Houston Outlaws, a lot of the weaknesses that come from them has always been their coaching, in my opinion. You hear about the horror stories that have happened behind the scenes with how the coaching, it hasn't really been effectively run. It's more team driven, all these kind of things. How is the coaching staff going to function? So we have Coolman as the general manager, who historically was a player for this team, so knows a lot of the player, knows a lot of the brand, and he has put together something. The coaching staff, though, is great. We have Harsha and Junkbuck coming in as the co-head coaches, which I have to give my respect to Harsha to step aside. I think Harsha did okay last season, but recognizing that there were weaknesses there and bringing in Junkbuck, phenomenal addition. There's going to be there's so much wealth of knowledge throughout the history of Overwatch esports from these two guys that it's going to be incredible to see what they can do with this talent. Then you have Jake, obviously very smart player. No one can doubt that. And he's going to bring a lot to the team, not only as a player, but as now he's more in that coaching role. I think he'll be able to do more to enable other players. So this is interesting. They don't have a ton of coaches. Like, they don't have all those assistant coaches. But I think Harsha, Junkbuck, and Jake, especially if Jake leans more heavily into the coaching role, I think they'll be able to get it done. I think they're grinders. I think they know what to do. And obviously you have Coolman, who has, you know, as the general manager, who knows how to play the game. I think there's enough there. So that is why you should be excited about the Outlaws. This is not going to be the Outlaws of disappointment like we've seen throughout the previous seasons. I actually think there aren't anywhere near close to as many holes in the roster. Every time we talked about Houston Outlaws, there's always that, maybe it'll fall apart, and then it always has. I don't think that's there, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do, because I put them in the B tier here, but I don't think that defines where they are. They could easily move into this A tier and be a top 8 contender, in my opinion, if it all comes together. So they've been grinding. They have that drive. I want to see them prove to everyone that these players who have historically failed throughout the league in, you know, the grand scheme of things, can prove that they can be successful. And the last team that I'm going to be putting in the B tier is kind of an interesting one, because I just don't know enough about this team to really put them any higher. And from what I've seen from other people who are more informed about this team, they've also been putting them here. So it's going to be the New York Excelsior, which is interesting seeing that Excelsior dropped so low, because even though NYXL has historically been very successful, they've obviously never won. And it seems like NYXL is taking a new approach to this team and this season of just, let's blow it up and then rebuild. And that seems to be the ideology. They're building around Jonak, but everyone else is gone. And they've picked up a lot of younger talent to really sort of round out this roster. So let's have a look at that. So we have Jonak, as I said, the team captain, I guess that's a thing that's on Wikipedia. But then we need to look at the DPS lineup. So we have Feather, Flora, Guangbong, and Ivy as their DPS lineup. I honestly don't know much at all about Feather, Flora, and Guangbong. I've heard, mixed things about all of them. Like they're solid. They're not, from what I've heard, standout players. They're not going to be the dominant players of the league, but there's the potential to be there. And all of them are going to have really interesting rookie seasons coming into such a team with high prestige like the NYXL. So it's going to be interesting to see how they match up against these best players, especially seeing as they're going to be playing in the Eastern region, which has a wealth of talent, especially in the DPS setup. So I'm really excited to see them, but I don't know enough about them. I can't give you an informed opinion about them. I am sorry. I just don't know them very well. So let's go have a quick look at them. Oh, sorry, and let's talk about, obviously we know Ivy from the Philadelphia Fusion. I think he impressed a lot of people last season, especially with his Mei. I think he sort of showed a flexibility that we haven't really seen from him in the past. So I actually like having that consistent factor of Ivy. We know what we're going to get. He's not going to be the Overwatch League MVP, but he's a solid player to have in your team, especially as a flex DPS. Feather is going to be another flex DPS coming in, probably playing more of the Sombra Pharah stuff other than Ivy, so probably leaning less towards the Mei and playing that Sombra Pharah, Echo kind of style with the Genji. It'd be interesting to see who would play Genji over Feather and Ivy. I'm not sure how good Feather's Genji is. Flora is going to be the hit scan player, the resident hit scan player, coming in and hailing from, what teams did he come from? Team Diamond, Meta Athena. Played in 2020, O2 Blast back in the day. He's been around for a while, so excited to see that. Where did Feather come from? Gen B, Talent Esports. Okay, so he played a little bit in Talent Esports from the previous seasons. And Guangbong coming from Team Cat. I'm all about Team Cat. I don't know who Team Cat is, but yeah. Look at this. He has a... Wait, this was a team? It shows how much I know about this. This is my favorite Chinese Overwatch team from now on. But yeah, let's go Team Cat. Let's go Guangbong. So as I said, I don't know much about these players. He's also going to be the hit scan player. So it'll be interesting. I wonder who the Tracer player is in this. Because just looking at their signature heroes according to Wikipedia, none of them really have that Tracer. So it'll be interesting to see who picks that up. I wouldn't be surprised if either Flora or Guangbong have that in their repertoire. We just don't know. So as I said, unfortunately, I can't give you a whole breakdown of the NYXL DPS lineup because I don't know them that well. We do know some of these other players though. So let's look at the tank lineup. So we have Yakpung, who has historically played for the Toronto Defiant. Started in O2 Blast, went to Toronto Defiant, went back to O2 Blast after the nightmare of the 2019 Toronto Defiant team happened, and is now coming back into NYXL. He has apparently been dominating for O2 Blast as the main tank, and a lot of people are very excited to see him make his debut back because I agree. I'm always excited when I see a player who falls out of the Overwatch League, has a pretty disappointing career in the Overwatch League, but then makes their return coming out of contenders. See the same thing in Paris Eternal. So, sorry, not Paris Eternal. No, it is Paris Eternal. Sorry, I'm losing it. Yeah, so I'm excited to see Yakpong. And then Bianca obviously played for NYXL, but didn't really get a whole lot of play time. We did see him a lot more towards the end of the season. So he is going to be sort of, coming in from the end of the season, but didn't really get a whole lot of time over Hopper. Excited to see more of him and as like a more, I guess, veteran role within the team. So Bianca is making, and staying within NYXL. Why do they make it seem like did he get dropped and then picked back up? Is that what yeah. I was trying to like work out what is happening here. But yeah, it seems like he theoretically got dropped and then being picked up. So he wasn't like a Jonak situation where Jonak has stayed on the roster. So, and then the support lineup is Jonak, who we all know, 2018 League MVP, phenomenal flex support, who's, I would say, has not had as much success as his name sort of holds onto historically, and I think he's been overtaken by, your Violets, by your Alarms and stuff like that, but he is still, in my opinion, one of the best flex supports we have in the league, and I hope that the slump comes down to the fact of it's just relative to the way NYXL has been failing. It hasn't all been on Jonak, and now he has a new roster around him. Let's see what he can do. And his partner's going to be Friday, who's coming from Oz Gaming. So hasn't had a very illustrious career. Very interesting sort of pickup. In 2020, he just didn't really succeed that well in Korean contenders. Obviously, don't know a whole lot about him. Interested to see more. NYXL seems to have done a lot of scouting throughout this season. They picked up a lot of players that I don't think were on as many other people's radar. So it's going to come down to, in my opinion, the coaching and the scouting from this team, and has it been good? Because, as I said, they've picked up a lot of players that I don't recognize. So is that going to be enough for them? So let's have a look at the coaching, because in my opinion, a lot of the failures of NYXL historically has been on their coaching staff. Their roster decisions of who to play, their meta decisions of what heroes to play in certain situations has always felt like they're running uphill with their talent. I don't know if that's on the players, if that's on the coaches. I honestly don't understand how it keeps happening. But the number of times last season I was like, what is NYXL doing? Why am I watching Libero on Hitscan? Why are they changing rosters every week? Like, that has been always my fundamental issue with NYXL. They've had the talent, but the coaching staff has been weird. So we do have some changes in coaches. So we have Why Not coming in as the head coach. So Why Not is coming from Seoul Dynasty. So he was a pretty integral part of the success of Seoul Dynasty last season. The issue that I have is I think he gave more consistency to the Seoul Dynasty, and I also think he made the right decisions. What happened behind the not playing off-tank situation, there are some question marks about if you can completely agree with that, but obviously has experience behind him coming from Seoul Dynasty. And then we have Squix, who I honestly just don't know. So Squix is a coach who coached London Spitfire. So he was at the end of London Spitfire. I honestly don't know this name at all. So they only have 2 coaches again, which I've talked about multiple times. I'm not sure if I agree with. Would love to see another coach. It's especially when you have so much young talent coming in. I would love to see more coaches. So hopefully we see something more picked up. But as I said, the reason I have this team at B is rookie players and a lot of people that I just don't know, and I can't put an effective rating and put above all these other veteran teams which have a more experienced and veteran roster. So NYXL is going to be in the B tier, but that's a big question mark for me. They could move up. They could have a ton of talent in the world, but from what I've read, from what I've seen from other people, the expectations, if you are an NYXL this fan, should not be to absolutely pop off. I think we might see a couple of players really sort of make a name for themselves, but almost like a rebuilding. This could be their season of rebuilding. Find what works out of this roster, and then add new players and get more additions later on. So could be a rebuilding year, looking to 2022. So that is going to be it for my B tier. That is where I'm going to leave it. The rest of this gets just really hard because there is a lot of talented teams, and there's a lot of teams that I think a lot of people would say, maybe this team could be in B tier, maybe this could be here. It's impossible to really put this here, and that's why I'm glad I'm doing a tier list and not a power rankings, because it's very up in the air, and I'm really excited to tell you guys and give you guys my thoughts on it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. There'll be another one coming in a few days, and we'll go through the A tier, so make sure you comment, let me know how stupid you think I am, and remember, this is just power rankings. This is all fun. You don't need to take it too seriously. Let's enjoy the season, because if you've been listening to anything I'm saying, this is going to be one of the best seasons with the most talent that we've seen to date. It's kind of criminal how many great players are being rated so low in this tier list. So, love you all. I'll see you guys soon. Peace out.